What's going on, everyone? Seth Miranda here, and there was a huge announcement from DJI, the Matrice 300 RTK with the Zenmuse H20 and H20T. First of all, I want to welcome Grant and Francisco from DJI to walk us through just what this is all about. There is a lot to unpack here, and I think the first thing we have to kind of talk about is what type of drone are we looking at? Because we're used to talk about consumer drones usually that are about this big, fold up in your backpack, and you're ready to go. But this really has an industrial use type application, government work, construction, bridges, places you can't get to, stuff like that. So let's talk about this. The first thing I want to hit on is the overall design. We're looking at a body on top and blades underneath. Tell me what happened here.
Yeah, that's right. So the just like you mentioned, the design has been changed now so that the propellers are actually underneath. So as you can see, the propellers are now underneath, and this is to allow more range for the sensors. So we have the FPV camera on top and then the sensors as well. They're not being blocked by these blades anymore. And with this new design, we've also been able to just make a single model, so just the M300 RTK. So now we don't have the difference between like an M200, M210, and then an M210 RTK. It's just one neat design, right? And this allows the RTK system to also be permanently mounted on the backside. So you do save money on different models, and also you have one single design.
Yeah, and not blocking the sensors is a big deal. For the first time, you have all sides covered by a sensor, which is obviously to help out with obstacles, right?
Yeah, that's right. So this new drone has sensors all over the place, so in six directions. We do have the visual and time of flight sensors in the front, on the back, on the side, on the top, and on the bottom. Yeah, and so these new sensors are actually customizable. So they have a range of around 130 feet. So they can detect up to 130 feet. However, you can set the stopping distance to, let's say, 10 feet, right? So if you need to get somewhere that's more narrow, you can set the stopping distance at 10 feet so that if your drone is getting too close, it'll just stop. However, if you do need to get closer, you can reduce that as well to like let's say 5 feet. So it is good to have that type of control on this industrial drone, and this type of control is not seen on the smaller consumer level drones.
Yeah, there's a lot of fail safes on consumer drones, especially with collision detection and stuff like that. If you're building bridges and things, and there's cabling, there's pillars, you have to be able to get through, under, and around things. And this gives you that ability to customize how close you can get, but also how safe it can get. Like you can actually make it over safe, kind of, if you want to like expand that that distance from 5 feet to 10 feet or 20 feet or so on. But it still gives you the ability to get around and document what you're trying to document, which is pretty cool. But that being said, let's talk about flight time. 55 minutes on one battery, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. You can get up to 55 minutes of flight time. That's without a gimbal. So let's say I take off this payload, right? So just utilizing the FPV camera, you can get up to 55 minutes of flight time, which it's almost an hour, so that's pretty good.
That's huge. And if the battery does run out, one of the issues you used to have was you had to reboot the drone, but now we have a hot swappable system. Am I right on that?
Yep, you are absolutely correct. So with the new design for the battery slot section, we have it so that you can easily remove one battery, put in the new battery, and then remove the other battery and insert the new battery as well. So the two batteries can now be hot swapped without having to turn off the drone. And this is big, especially if you're utilizing the RTK system. Many of our industrial users know that sometimes you have to wait 20, 30 minutes to get RTK signals. So now that you don't have to turn off the drone, you can easily be ready to go.
That's awesome, and that keeps it super efficient because this is really a work-related drone. This is for an actual purpose. It's not like I'm going on vacation, I'm taking this thing, and I just want to see some really beautiful drone footage. We have to get this job done, and time is money. So that's a big deal, actually, really. Let's talk about that dual control for a second. So we now have the ability to have two pilots on this thing, and that means if one pilot gets compromised, like let's say they lose signal for whatever, the battery goes dead in their remote, there's another person there that can handle this drone. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have two RCs right here called the Smart Controller Enterprise, but both of these will be paired to the drone before takeoff. So same security precautions in place there. We have our AES 256 encryption. So both of the controllers directly connected to the drone itself. But then in air, you're absolutely right, where the second controller with the touch of a button can take control of the drone in an emergency situation. But if you're looking to secure the operations and the first controller does not want the second controller to take control, you can go ahead and lock that control. And then this also comes into play just on the working side of things, like you said as well, optimizing operations for inspecting transmission towers or doing a long bridge job. You could have someone at both ends, and the second operator can take control halfway in the middle there when they have visual line of sight of the drone, as a lot of operations take place here in the US, and continue the mission and land the drone in a new spot. So really the first time you're seeing this with an enterprise drone, and a great feature all around.
Yeah, that's super smart, because if you think about it, if you had to document a whole bridge, you'd also have to get it to come back. If you can get it in one shot across, you just cut your time in half, not to mention made the most efficient use of the battery and everything else like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, even on the public safety side of things, can have someone who's at the front line, someone who perhaps a little bit farther back, the IC, and that second controller can be used to control the drone, control the gimbal, or even to run an HDMI out if you need to live stream or put that feed onto a bigger monitor.
Live stream, yeah. Can we talk about transmission for a second? OcuSync seems to be improved. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so you have OcuSync Enterprise now. It's a transmission between the RC and the drone. Transmission bandwidth up to 80 megabits per second, which allows 3 feeds at 1080p from the drone to the controller. So improvement there. And we're still, like I mentioned before, keeping that AES 256 encryption as well, allowing secure transmission between the drone and the controllers. And also expands the range as well of the drone. So you can operate farther if you were flying beyond visual line of sight, you know, or always good to have more range during your operations with any interference you may run into.
Yeah, because I might be totally wrong on this, but it switches wavelengths. Is that, it switches frequencies?
Yeah, that's another good point. We have dual band, so it works on 2.4 and 5.8 gigahertz bands. So if it's getting interference on one of those, it'll go ahead and switch to the others.
Yeah, I feel like that's a big point that might get overlooked, because if you're someone working industrially, you're probably around signal towers, and who knows what else is in those airwaves while it's in flight, and you need to make sure you have full control of this drone the entire time.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point there. A good transmission signal between the drone and the RC is huge, and that dual band is something our users definitely appreciate.
So what resolution are we talking about during that transmission?
10 up to 1080p, and then it depends on what payload or camera you're using, as they have different resolutions as well.
Yeah, and speaking of camera, let's get onto that Zenmuse H20. We have triple sensor, right? We're talking about 20 megapixel, a 12 megapixel. We have a laser rangefinder. I mean, this thing has so much stuff on it, and it's crazy. Let's talk about that. So first of all, what's the difference between the H20 and the H20T?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know, different ways to say it. H20, H20, whatever you want to do. But we have a Zenmuse H20T right here, and you can see the difference is the H20 does not have a thermal camera. The H20T, thus the T, adds the thermal camera into the mix. So you can see we're on video here, but the mirror there, that's going to be the laser rangefinder. Moving down there, we have the thermal camera. Moving to the right, the 20 megapixel zoom camera with 23-time hybrid optical zoom. And then we have our wide camera on top there as well. And just to circle back on that hybrid optical zoom, it allows you to start at the 24 millimeter lens of the wide camera and go to the extent of the zoom camera, which is 556 millimeters. And, between there, you do the math, you're getting the 23-time hybrid optical zoom, but it allows you through that whole way to take optical photos and not rely on digital zoom. That being said, it still is a 20 megapixel camera, so you can go all the way out to 200 times zoom when you're using the digital portion of it.
Yeah, that's a big deal because people don't realize that digital zoom is actually cutting down your resolution as you're using it. You're just punching into those pixels more and more and more. 50% in there, you're talking about 10 megapixels now. You know, so to have optical zoom to get the true image is remarkable, really. I'm sorry. We can actually record all 3 sensors at once. Is that a thing, or is that like one sensor at a time?
But wait, there's more. So you can actually be recording all 3 sensors and then take a picture while you're doing the recording. So it's really an incredible opportunity when you're collecting data to get what you need. But at the same time, if you have your SD card and you're just doing a thermal inspection, you have the opportunity in the application to just change that to be simply the thermal camera if that's the data you're looking to collect.
So you can record all the information in one shot, one flight. Even if you don't need it, you have it. That's pretty crazy if you think about it. That's a lot of computing. That's a lot of data going on at once in that machine right there.
Yep, absolutely. And we do remind users to check the user manual and make sure they have an SD card that can handle it, but certainly great capability with the system. Yep.
So what kind of card would you recommend with all this data?
Yeah, you just want to use a U3 card and go up to 128 gigs for size.
120 gigs is a pretty nice size. Okay, so we got all this information. We got all these sensors, all this craziness. What's the size of the payload that it can handle? Is there a variation in the payload? Is it only just one gimbal? What can we do with this?
Right. So in terms of payload sizes, it can handle up to a 6-pound payload on the drone.
Wow.
There are several different configurations you can use. So right now I have the single mount on this drone, but you could put a dual mount system, and you can actually go up to 3 gimbals at one time. So we have an optional third gimbal mount on the top as well if you really needed to use a third gimbal.
You can really outfit this drone three at once.
Yeah, that's right. So so as of right now, there is no use case specifically.
Okay. Yeah. That's like
right? But there is the option to use what we call a payload SDK. So through the PSDK, we have third-party developers that can develop their own sensor suite to attach to the drone, right? So we do have, like, let's say a methane detector, right? You could use that methane detector through the PSDK, attach it to this drone, potentially probably want it on the bottom somewhere, and you could use another sensor on the top if you wanted to. Let's say, can't think of another payload that would be useful at the moment, but you do have options.
But that's also future proofing, right? So in case there's something that comes along or goes forward, you never have to go like, oh, I wish this could do that. Like, no, there's more options to go along with this system, which is pretty great.
Yeah, and talking about the payload SDK that Francisco mentioned, we have a spotlight through that can be attached to the drone. So if you want to put the spotlight on the drone, especially in the public safety space, to light up a scene or an area, you could do so along with the H20 camera, and if you already have an XT2 camera from the past as well. So like you said, just giving the user options to do what they need to do.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that DJI has been great with is making it easy accessibility. We see in your consumer drones a lot of like pre-programmed flight patterns, tracking, all sorts of stuff. And this is no different, even though it's industrial. If I'm correct, and I keep saying that because I'm watching this video and I'm like, there's no way this really does this, but it actually can remember jobs. So if you have something you're trying to document, you can teach it to do how you want to do it, and then go back to that same site and just basically do it all over again when you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of our smart inspection package. There's kind of 3 tiers to that. We have our new Waypoint 2.0, where you can create waypoints. Basically, easy way would be describe it just kind of like pit stops for the drone along its flight. So stopping at point 1, taking a picture there, or starting a video there, going to stop 2, maybe it goes up a little and to the left a little, taking a picture of a second component. So that's just the ability to do more in the waypoint section, which we could dive into certainly a lot more. After that, though, you're able to record these waypoints and actions while you're actually conducting the mission. So you don't have to do a separate planning mission or additional work. While you're completing your initial mission, you can go ahead and record what is being done. And then with the H20, a third level to that is AI spot check, where the photos you take, you're able to open them up in the application after the fact, annotate what in that photo was important in the photo. And then next time when you come back, you're able to take that same photo and the camera will search for whatever you've annotated to make sure it's in that photo.
So it's like smart selection.
Yeah, exactly. So, going back to, like a cell tower or transmission where you found an issue a few months ago and you're looking to complete that flight again, you can make sure wherever the issue was or wherever the inspection was taking place, that specific component or area is getting photographed again in the same way.
That's so wild. It's crazy, man. Just the way DJI is constantly putting robotics and like interface together so well and making, because you can make all this crazy technology, but if no one knows how to use it, or if you have a team of people that have to work with it together and not everybody is super tech savvy, there's always this way you seem to find to make the job easier, just make the drone work to its optimized potential. It's so it's crazy to me what's going on over there. You DJI guys, I'm gonna have to keep an eye on you guys. So is there anything that you think we should go over? I think, as far as the durability of this, as it's industrial, is it weatherproof? What are we talking about when it's water, if it's raining, water, what's going on? How about that?
Yeah, so this drone is IP45 rated for the drone itself. So what that means is that it's splash proof. In terms of water, it can handle water in several directions for the drone. That being said, so it's only waterproof once you lock in the arms, obviously. So once your arms are locked in, you should be good to go. And that's a new design change because the ESCs are now inside of the body instead of being next to the motors as you were previously.
Okay, well, I mean, it's smart to make it some sort of water resistant. I mean, who knows what's going to be, especially if you're documenting bridges or things by the water. Even if it's not like by the water, there's still a level of humidity and moisture in the air that can affect a lot of things, right?
Yeah, exactly. And these drones are also used for emergency services as well. So sometimes you have to put the drone up in the air.
Okay, so there's a ton of stuff happening here, a lot of moving parts, a lot of features, a lot of versatility to this thing, but how about maintenance? Because over time, wear and tear, just keeping the battery healthy, right? Conditioning the battery and stuff like that. What do we have as far as the maintenance on this?
Right, so with the new drone, we have the new health management system. So this system monitors all of the subcomponents for your drone, including the batteries. So we've released a new maintenance guide, an updated maintenance guide for the M300 RTK, which covers, what parts should be looked at, what should be replaced. And we're also launching a new after-sales maintenance program as well. So your drone can be inspected every 6 months. That way, everything is fully calibrated, everything's working fine. But yeah, so the new health management system that's easily available through the controller now. It allows you to monitor your drone's subcomponents, but it also allows you to manage your flight logs and your flight data as well. So if you
that's cool.
had an issue, you could easily upload it now from the controller for our after-sales team to inspect in case there's any issues.
Yeah, that's kind of like when they always ask you to do a screen recording when you're having a problem with a program. It's basically the same thing, just like now we know what happened. It's sort of a black box technically. I mean,
yeah, exactly. That's what so the drones have a DAT file inside that is essentially the black box. And the controllers also have something similar as well. Not to that level, but similar.
All right, cool. So where could people find out some more information about the drone if they want to get a little more deeper into this?
Yeah, they can go to DJI.com, and there we have the M300 RTK webpage. And if they have any questions about purchasing this, they could also contact us through that portal as well.
All right, cool. Any closing statements, Grant, Francisco, anything?
Yeah, I'm definitely if it's something that interests you. The website's a great place to see more. There's so many features like we were talking about. Obviously, can't get to everything in a video, and some of those, including smart track and pinpointing. It's really just great to see the new interface and all of these sensors coming together to give the pilot more situational awareness.
Yeah, I think we'll see people pulling out video and footage and content from these drones as it's out there in the wild. It's brand new. So we're going to put a link down below in this video in the description for the webpage for the Matrice 300 RTK and the Zenmuse H20. Guys, thank you so much for your time. If you guys have any questions about what we just talked about here, write a comment down below. We'll try to get in there to answer it for you. But for the most part, hit that link in the description down below. Francisco, Grant, thank you so much. And I guess we'll talk to you guys next time, which is like in 5 seconds because you're always putting out something really cool. So cool. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks.